Good morning to all. As this is the first lecture of probability theory in TY BCom, I would like to congratulate each of you that all of you are ready to have the first lecture of statistics of the theory, probability theory. First of all, before defining the word probability, we must understand few terms which are frequently used to understand the concept of probability. And these words are experiment, event, and so on. Let us discuss it one by one so that you can make it a clear idea about what this experiment and events are. First of all, experiment. By definition, it is an experiment is the process of making an observation or measuring results in different possible outcomes. If you understand it with an example, then that would be a little more convenient to all of you. For example, throwing a dice. You might have done it many a times in your childhood. Tossing a coin, that is again an experiment. Look, what do you mean by experiment? Experiment may result different outcomes. For a moment, let us suppose if we throw a dice, naturally there are 6 surfaces on a dice, and any one of those 6 surfaces having some number on it may occur on surface. While throwing a dice, any one number from 1 to 6 may occur on the surface. While tossing a coin, you may get any one of those two outcomes. One, you can get head or you can get tail. But throwing a die itself or tossing a coin itself is named as an experiment. Think of an event. Whatever the output you may get, whatever the outcome is, that is named as event. Let us connect those two. For example, if in throwing a dice experiment, one may get any number between 1 to 6. Whatever occurs on surface becomes an event. Let us suppose you are getting 5 on surface, that becomes an event. Similarly, while tossing a coin, one may get any one of those two, head or tail. Occurrence of head or occurrence of tail becomes an event. I think now it is very clear what is the difference of this experiment and event. Always, whatever may be the experiment, outcome of that experiment becomes an event. So experiment is nothing but a set of events. Is it okay? This is a general concept of probability. You don't have to mug it up. It is not needed right now. According to Ya-Lun Chao, statistics as a method of decision making under uncertainty is founded on probability theory. Since probability is at once the language and the measure of uncertainty and the risks associated with, these models can be used for making predictions. Probability theory facilitates the construction of econometric models. It also facilitates the managerial decisions on planning and control. What do you mean by this? Statistics as a method of decision making under uncertainty is founded on probability theory. That means in statistics, any of the decision making under uncertainty is based on probability theory. Why are we learning probability? Where it is used, if it don't have any use, then why one should learn it? So this gives the application part of probability. Once the probability models are defined, then on the basis of that, you can make certain predictions. These predictions can be, let us suppose, to understand it in a better way, let us suppose you are one of the CEO of a company and you want to make certain predictions. What may happen in coming years, in coming days, that can be predicted using some probability models. Let us suppose government want to establish or they want to implement certain schemes. So again, in that case, probability theory helps them to construct the econometric model. So it is very simple that to facilitate the managerial decision on planning and control, we must understand the concept of probability. That is the reason why probability theory is in your syllabus, expecting that you might be working somewhere in government, or you might be CEO in certain companies. At that point of time, on the basis of previous data, you can generate some probability models and you can make perfect decisions. Again, classical or a priority probability approach. There are three different approaches of probability. The first one is called classical, or you can say a priori probability approach. The another one is empirical probability approach. And the third approach is based on set theory, based on certain axioms. So the third definition may come in picture would be axiomatic probability approach. Let us see it one by one. Again, while making a definitional part of a classical or a priori probability, these terms are frequently used. Experiment, we have seen it. An experiment is a process of making an observation or taking a measurement which results in a different possible outcomes, and throwing a die is one of the best example. Event. Event is outcome of an experiment. Anything which comes on surface while throwing a dice, naturally it becomes an event. The new word here used is equally likely. It implies that each outcome of an experiment has the same chance of appearing as any other. What do you mean by this? For a moment, let us see it, view it in terms of an example. Let us suppose you are throwing a dice. The occurrence of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, they are equally likely if it is an unbiased dice. For a moment, let us suppose we are tossing a coin. Getting a head which is equally likely to have tail on surface. We are not talking about Soleil's coin. In that movie, that coin was having the same head on both the sides. So that was a biased coin. What we are talking right now about is an unbiased coin on which one of the surface contains head and the another surface contains tail. Is it clear now? How it is defined? According to Laplace, a French mathematician, probability is the ratio of the number of favorable cases to the total number of equally likely cases. While putting it in a formulatic form, if probability of occurrence of event A is denoted by probability means P in a bracket it is A, means it is pronounced as probability of happening of event A, then by definition it can be this way: probability of A, which is equal to, in a ratio form, number of favorable cases, let us denote it with A, divided by total number of equally likely cases, and let us denote it with N. So it would be A upon N. Rewriting it or putting it in a different way, probability of occurrence of an event, let us call it success. This successful event is generally denoted with small p. So this small p is A upon N, where A is number of favorable cases and N is number of equally likely cases. Naturally, when we are talking about success, we should think of failure too. Probability of non-occurrence of an event, let us call it failure. This is generally denoted with small q, which is equal to B upon N. What is B in this case? B is number of favorable cases for not happening an event. So naturally it would be B upon N. Okay, when you say A is number of favorable cases or for happening something, B is number of cases for not happening something. So when you make a sum of these two, A plus B, total becomes N. N means total number of equally likely cases. So A plus B is generally N. The sum of success and failure outcome is equal to total number of events. Now dividing this equation both the side by N, A upon N plus B upon N, which is equal to N upon N, which seems to be 1. So we can say that P plus Q, which is equal to 1, that simply indicates that probability of success and probability of failure, if we make sum of those two, it always tends to 1, which is a very basic, or you can say a prior definition of a probability, or you can say a property of probability. Always the total sum of probability goes to 1. It cannot exceed 1. Please mark it and remember it. Your probability cannot exceed 1, whatever may be the experiment, whatever may be the event. Is it okay? Classical probability is often called a priori probability because if one keeps using orderly examples of unbiased dice, fair coin, etc., one can state that the answer in advance without rolling a die, tossing a coin, etc. This is again an approach part, so you don't have to mug it up. There are certain limitations with this classical definition, and that is why the new definition called empirical came in picture. A new concept of axiomatic definition of a probability came in picture. What are the limitations of this classical definition? As you know it well, that classical definition is a ratio of two elements. Number of favorable event divided by total number of possible outcomes, right? Okay, this ratio may fail if number of possible outcome of an experiment is infinite. What happens when that n divided by n, that n tends to infinity, means which is much more, then naturally this definition cannot be used. Second is, it is based on cases which are equally likely and as such cannot be applied to the experiment where the outcomes are not equally likely. Classical and a priori probability cannot be used if all the events which are taking place, if they are not equally likely, this definition cannot be used. That again becomes a limitation, another limitation. It may not be possible practically to enumerate all the possible outcomes of certain experiment, and in such cases the method fails. What this third point says? It says that if all the possible outcomes are not known in advance before experimenting, then this definition fails. Because your n is not known in advance, then you cannot use this definition. The fourth and the most important point is, this definition is circular in nature. What do you mean by saying it is circular in nature? Okay, just concentrate on the word equally likely. What do you mean by that? Equally likely is nothing but equally probable. Look, in this case, when you use a condition while defining a probability that it should be equally probable, then in the definition itself you are using a word equally probable. So this becomes circular in nature. So in that case, this definition is not used. That is where a new concept came in picture, which is a modern definition of a probability, or you can say it is an axiomatic definition of a probability. Before of that, one more definition is there, which is called an empirical definition. But you don't have to worry much about that empirical definition, as this empirical definition of probability is generally not used in practice. With all the practical examples, the second definition, which we call it empirical definition, is generally not used. In this empirical definition, simply we limit the cases both sides where n tends to infinity. If you are well versed of certain mathematical limit theory, then you will come to know what exactly it is. So definition remains same as it is in a classical or a priori probability definition. By simply taking limit of n tends to infinity both the side, it becomes a definition called empirical definition of a probability. Now shifting to the third approach, which is axiomatic based. Try to understand it. Let S be the sample space. What do you mean by sample space? Sample space is a set. As it is based on set theory, naturally we will be talking in terms of set. S be the sample space. Sample space means you have to jot down all the possible outcomes and put it in a set form, and that set is being denoted with the name S, and that is called a sample space. Let S be the sample space, and let summation be the class of event, and let P be the real valued function defined on summation. The P is called probability measure, and probability of A is called probability of event A if P satisfies the following axioms. What the first axiom is? First axiom says that your probability of A is always between 0 and 1. Both inclusive. Here equal to sign is used, that means both of the limits are inclusive. Means probability of A can take value 0, it can also take value 1. Both of them are inclusive, and any value between 0 to 1. Second axiom. Probability of sample space S is 1. That means in a sample space all the possible outcomes are there. So naturally probability of a sample space becomes the highest one. The highest probability is 1, which is very natural, but it is in form of axioms now. The third one. For every finite or infinite sequence of disjoint events A1, A2, A3 and so on up to AN, then probability of A1 union of A2, union of A3 and so on up to union of AN, which is equal to sum of an individual probability. Individual probability means probability of A1 plus probability of A2 plus probability of A3 and so on up to it is probability of AN. That means if you make a union of any number of events, which is nothing but sum of their individual probability. This is only if they are disjoint event. Disjoint event is a word used with set theory. We will be explaining it in a later stage. It is coming on the next slides. Objective approach and subjective approach to probability. These are the two different approaches. The objective approach of a probability is arrived on opinion basis or an empirical basis. It is given by the ratio of frequency of an outcome to the total number of possible outcomes. In contrast, the subjective approach to the probability is not concerned with the relative or expected frequency of an outcome. It is concerned with the strength of a decision maker's belief that an outcome will not occur. As such, the subjective approach is particularly oriented toward decision making situation. These are the two different approaches, and you don't have to worry much about these approaches. Line by line, slide by slide, it may come and you will come to know what are objective and what are the subjective approach of a probability. Let us think of certain example that will make the whole concept very clear to you. First example of a probability. Let us suppose an unbiased coin is tossed. What is the probability that it is a head? The second question is, what is the probability that it is not a head? Okay. First thing to be thought of is, while tossing a coin, how many different outcomes are possible? Total number of equally likely events are 2, whether you will get head or you will get tail. Number of heads are 1, number of tails are 1. Since we are approaching to the first question, what is the probability that it is a head? So naturally, to get a head, for a moment, let us say it success. Success is generally denoted with small case p. So probability of getting a head p, which is equal to, it is in a form of a ratio. Ratio is, in the ratio 1. Where this 1 came from? In how many different favorable cases are there? Means in how many different way you can get head. As everyone can see it, that only one way one can get a head. So naturally your A in this case is 1 divided by total number of possible outcomes. How many possible outcomes are there? Head and tail. There are 2. So it is 1 upon 2 and probability is 0.5. Is it clear? Now let us take another example. What is the probability that it is not a head? Not getting a head is naturally, generally it is called failure. Okay. Failure is generally denoted with Q. Q is nothing but, again, it is something upon something. Something upon something means, the first thing, number of favorable cases of not getting head. In how many different ways one cannot get head? Again, getting a tail becomes not getting a head. Again, a one way, that means it is 1 upon, it is total number of possible outcomes. Total number of possible outcomes are 2, which remains constant throughout. So it is 1 by 2, which is again 0.5. Again, since it is not getting a head, we can approach it in a different way even, which is, you can say it 1 minus probability of getting a head. Getting a head means success. So failure can be found as 1 minus probability of success. So it can be 1 minus 0.5. Again you will get 0.5. From this example, you could get one of the property of a probability, which is again one of the very important property. We can say that probability of success and probability of failure, if you make a sum of those two, it goes to the highest value of probability. Highest value of probability is 1. So it is half plus half, which tends to 1. Is it clear? Let us take one more example that will make it more clear. In the last example, it was tossing a coin, so there were only 2 outputs. Now we are approaching one more example, one more experiment in which we have more than 2 outputs. Let us concentrate on this example. An unbiased cubic dice is thrown. What is the probability of getting? The first example is 6, second is an even number, an odd number, a number which is in multiple of 2, and a number which is in multiple of 3. Think of the first one. Total number on a dice surface. How many different possible outcomes are there? It can be number 1, it can be 2, it can be 3, 4, 5 or 6. So 6 different outputs are possible. 6 different outcomes are possible. So total number of possible outcomes becomes 6. So your value of small n becomes 6 in this case. Of this 6, how many way one may get 6 on surface? There is only one possible way. So number of 6 in a die is 1. So probability of getting 6, let us denote it with P, which is equal to A upon N. In this case your A is only one way you can get it. So one favorable cases is there. So value of A is 1 in this case, divided by total number of possible outcomes, they are 6. So it is 1 by 6. So this becomes the answer of first one. What is the probability of getting 6? It is 1 by 6. Let us think of the another example. Getting an even number. Our intention is to get probability of getting an even number. Total number of possible outcomes with a die throwing businesses are 6. Okay. Of which how many of them are even numbers? Even numbers means numbers which are divisible by 2. They can be 2, it can be 4, or it can be 6. In that case, there are 3 different ways of getting an even number on a surface in a die throwing business. So total number of favorable cases for getting an even number becomes 3. So probability of getting an even number becomes 3 upon 6. It is just because of 3 is total number of favorable cases divided by 6. This 6 is total number of possible outcomes. So that 3 by 6, by simplifying it, one can get it is 1 upon 2, which is nothing but 0.5. Concentrating it on the third possibility, third example, getting an odd number. Total number of possible outcome in a die throwing business are 6. Total odd numbers in a dice are 1, 3 and 5. Odd numbers. The numbers which are not divisible by 2. They are 1, 3 and 5. So total there are 3 favorable cases. So probability becomes, again, it is 3 by 6, where the first 3 is number of favorable cases of getting an odd number divided by total number of possible outcomes. They are 6 in nature, which is equal to 1 upon 2, which is equal to 0.5. So probability of getting an odd number is again 0.5. The next is a number which is in multiple of 2. Total number of possible outcomes in a die throwing business, they are 6. Total even number on a dice can be found as 2, 4 or 6. So number of favorable cases becomes 3. Total number of possible outcomes are 6. So probability of getting an even number becomes 3 upon 6, where 3 is number of favorable cases and 6 is total number of possible outcomes, which is 1/2 again, which is 0.5. Thinking of the next example, getting a number which is in multiple of 3. Total number of possible outcomes in a die throwing business are 6. Total numbers which are in multiple of 3, they are 2. If you can get 3, it is again in multiple of 3. If you get 6, again it is in multiple of 3. So there are 2 ways of getting a number which is in multiple of 3. So this 2 becomes number of favorable cases for this event. So probability of getting a number which is in multiple of 3 becomes 2 divided by total number of possible outcomes, they are 6. So it comes to 1 upon 3, and so probability of getting a number which is in multiple of 3 is 0.33. Is it clear now? Let us take one more example that may make it more clear. One card is drawn from a well shuffled standard pack of 52 playing cards. What is the probability that it is a king, king of red color, king of heart, numeric card bearing a multiple of 2, red numeric card bearing a multiple of 2, black odd numeric card. These are different examples from A to G. Let us see it one by one. First of all of you might be knowing this playing card games. Total number of cards in a pack of playing cards are 52. Just have an analysis. In this 52 cards, there are two colors. One is red and second is black. Among this 52 cards, 26 cards are of red color and 26 cards are of black color. Okay. Among these 26 cards of red color, there are two different types. Similarly, among these 26 cards of black color, there are two different types. Okay. What are those types? They are of a different type. Okay. Let us focus first on this part. Total number of cards, there are 52. Among these 52 cards, how many kings are there? There are 4 kings of each type, 1 king of each type, there are 4. So probability of getting a king which is equal to 4 by 52, how it appeared, where this 4 is number of favorable cases for getting a king divided by total number of possible outcomes. There are 52 cards among which you just pick up one of the cards. There are 52 different possibilities, 52 different cards may occur, that is why it is 52. So it is 4 by 52. 4 by 52, if you just simplify it more, then it comes to 1 upon 13. So probability of getting a king when one card is drawn from a well shuffled standard pack of 52 playing cards becomes 1 upon 13. Let us take another one. King of red color. Total number of cards which we have are 52. Total number of kings of red color, there are 2. So probability of getting a king of a red color becomes 2 upon 52. Where 2 is number of favorable cases of getting king of red color divided by total number of possible outcomes. There are 52 in nature. That is why, simplifying it much, it comes to 1 upon 26. Next is king of heart. Total number of cards which we have are 52, in which king of hearts, how many king of hearts are there? There is only 1. So probability of getting a king of heart comes to 1 upon 52, where 1 is number of favorable cases for getting a king of heart, which is 1, divided by total number of possible outcomes, there are 52, that is why it is 1 upon 52. Next example is numeric card. Total number of possible cards are 52. Total number of numeric cards among this are 36. You just take away all the possible pictorial cards. The remaining card becomes 36. So probability of getting a numeric card becomes 36 upon 52. Where this 36 is favorable cases for getting numeric card, starting from 2 to 10, and you just multiply it with 4. So 9 multiplied by 4, it becomes 36. So 36 divided by total number of possible outcomes, there are 52. That is why it is 36 by 52. More simplifying it, it comes to 9 by 13. The next example is numeric card bearing a multiple of 2. Total number of cards are 52. Okay, that becomes total number of possible outcomes. Now total number of numeric cards bearing a multiple of 2. Which are they? List it out. 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. There are 5 different ways one can get a number which is a multiple of 2 in each set. How many sets are there? There are 4 sets. So in a pack of 52 cards, 5 multiplied by 4 becomes 20. 20 cards are there. They are of a numeric type which are in multiple of 2. So naturally those cards becomes number of favorable cases for it. So probability of getting a numeric card bearing a multiple of 2 becomes 20 upon 52. More simplifying it, it comes to 5 upon 13. The next example is red numeric card bearing a multiple of 2. Okay, red numeric card. Try to concentrate on it. Total number of cards which we have are 52. Total number of red numeric cards bearing a multiple of 2 becomes 5. In each set there are 2 sets of red color, so it is 5 multiplied by 2 becomes 10. So probability of getting a red numeric card bearing a multiple of 2 becomes 10 upon 52, which is, more simplifying it, it comes to 5 upon 26. The next is black odd numeric card. Total number of cards which we have are 52. Now total number of black odd numeric card. Black odd numeric card. Odd numeric card are, how many odd numeric cards are there? There are 4. 4 odd numeric cards are there. Black color, there are 2 sets of black color. So it is 4 multiplied by 2 becomes 8. Probability of getting a black odd numeric card becomes 8 by 52, where 8 is number of favorable cases to get black odd numeric card divided by total number of possible outcomes. They are 52 in nature, which comes to 2 by 13. Is it clear? One more example. A bag contains 30 balls. Each of the balls are numbered 1 to 30 on it. One ball is drawn at random. Find the probability that the number of the drawn ball will be in multiple of 3, another one, 5, another one, 7, another one, 3 and 5, another one, 3 and 7, and the last one, 5 and 7. Let us put it. First thing first, total number of balls, there are 30. Okay. So there are 30 different possibility of getting a number on it. So total number of possible outcomes are 30. Our denominators are fixed now for 30 in each of this example. Okay. Now what we need, a probability of getting a number which is a multiple of 3. Among these 30 possible outcomes, how many of them are in multiple of 3? Look, 1 to 30. How many numbers are there which are in multiple of 3? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27 and 30. Look, total numbers which are in multiple of 3 are 10. So probability of getting a number which is in multiple of 3, there are 10 different possibilities. So this 10 different possibility becomes number of favorable cases. So probability of getting a number which is in multiple of 3, favorable cases are 10 divided by total number of possible outcomes which are 30. By more simplifying it, it comes to 1 by 3. So 1 by 3 is probability of getting a number which is in multiple of 3, where a bag contains 30 balls numbered 1 to 30 and one ball is selected at random. Another one. Similarly, think of a number which is in multiple of 5. Okay, again in this case our denominator is fixed to be 30 because total number of possible outcomes are 30 only. Okay, how many of them are in multiple of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 and 30? There are 6 different possibilities of getting a number which is in multiple of 5. So this 6 becomes number of favorable cases for getting a number which is in multiple of 5. Whereas total number of possible outcomes are 30. So it is 6 by 30, which comes to 1 upon 5, which is 0.2. So probability of getting a number which is in multiple of 5 becomes 0.2. Next is probability of getting a number which is in multiple of 7. How many different numbers are there on the ball which are in multiple of 7? It can be 7, 14, 21 and 28. Okay. Total number of possible outcomes are fixed to be 30. So denominator is fixed. Numerator, that means number of favorable cases are 4. So it becomes 4 by 30. Simplifying it, it comes to 2 by 15. Is it clear now? The next example is 3 and 5. When you say that 3 and 5 means number should be in multiple of 3 as well as it should be in multiple of 5. 3 and 5. There are only two numbers among this 1 to 30. They are in multiple of 3 as well as in multiple of 5. They are 15 and 30. So naturally number of favorable cases becomes 2. Number of total possible outcomes are 30. So it is 2 by 30, which is 1 by 15. 3 and 7. Similarly, only one number is there, 21, which is in multiple of 3 and 7. Sorry. So there is only one favorable cases is there. So it would be 1 by 30. So 1 by 30 becomes probability of getting a number which is multiple of 3 and 7. 5 and 7. Probability of number being multiple of 5 and 7. Look, 5 and 7. The first number occurs is 7 multiplied by 5, which is 35. Total number of balls are 30. So there are no numbers which are in multiple of 5 and 7. So number of favorable cases are 0. 0 divided by 30 goes to 0. So here this probability goes to 0. Is it okay? The next example. A bag contains 3 black, 4 white and 5 red balls. A ball is drawn at random. What is the probability that it is a black ball, another one, a white ball, another one, red ball, and the fourth one, non-black ball? First of all, think of, there is a bag. How many total number of balls are there? 3 black, 4 white and 5 red balls. So total number of balls are 12. Okay. One ball is selected at random. So you have 12 different opportunities to get a ball of any number. Is it okay? So total number of possible outcomes are 12 for sure. So our denominator is fixed to be 12 in each of this example. The only number which may change would be depending on the event for which you require probability, that may change. Means number of favorable cases may change, but the total number of possible outcomes remains constant throughout in each of the example. The first example, black ball, probability of getting a black ball. Okay, total number of black balls are 3. While making a selection, any one of these 3 balls comes, naturally they becomes favorable cases. So probability of getting a black ball becomes 3 upon 12, where 3 is favorable cases for getting a black ball and 12 is total number of possible outcomes, which are 12. By more simplifying it, it comes to 1 upon 4. The second example, white ball. Total number of white balls are 4. So total number of favorable cases for getting a white ball becomes 4 divided by total number of possible outcomes, that are 12. So it becomes 4 by 12, which is 1 by 3. Third example. Red ball. Total number of red balls in a bag are 5. If any one of those 5 comes while making a selection, those becomes a favorable event to you. So the favorable event, total number of favorable event for getting a red ball becomes 5 divided by total number of possible outcomes, there are 12. So it becomes 5 upon 12. Next is getting a non-black ball. Total number of non-black. Non-black means it should not be black. It should not be black means it can be red as well as white. So it is 4 plus 5. Total number of balls are 5. 4 plus 5, they becomes 9. So probability of getting a non-black ball is 9 upon 12, where 9 is favorable cases for getting non-black balls divided by total number of possible outcomes, there are 12, and that is why it is 3 upon 4. Is it clear? I think now the whole idea is clear.